On today's edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast, stock up, stock down after a 23-14 win in Los Angeles over the Rams. The Eagles now 5-0. This is the Locked On Eagles podcast.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Louis DiBiase, joined as always by Gino Camilleri. We're going to continue to recap a 23-14 win for the Birds over the Rams. And Gino, we both said on the postgame show, although it was a 9-point win, which is not their biggest margin of a victory so far this year, it felt like it on the field. Pretty much everything outside of the box score. This was the most dominant win, I think, of the season. It felt like the closest thing we've seen to the 2022 Eagles so far.
In the second half, for sure. In the first half, that pass defense was nothing.
From a secondary perspective, yes.
But from Jalen Hurts' perspective, from the offensive line perspective, from the run game perspective, from getting the ball in the air for over 300 yards, that was the equivalent of everything that we had been preaching that they needed to consistently do to become one of these teams that is in the hunt each and every year. And I listened to a bit on Chris Long's show today with him and his brother. Fantastic show, Greenlight Pod. And he was talking about, he's like, when are the Eagles going to be considered like the Patriots, where they've just been good for like 6 to 7 years and they just find ways to win? Like, there were those years when Tom Brady would start off slow, but then they would figure out ways to win and claw it together. And I'll take that any day of the week, right? Like,
it's the Chiefs sometimes too, right, Gino?
Yeah, I mean, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And everybody's hot on San Fran, right? But we're not crowning Super Bowl champions on October 10th, 2023, right? Like, we have to wait for the calendar to flip before that happens. But the other day was exactly what you wanted to see, a step in the right direction, especially after a defensive performance against Sam Howell that wasn't great. Mm-hmm. There were some hits and misses in the air that prior week against Washington, but it just seemed like everything was working, especially in that second half where you don't allow the Rams to go over 100 yards and you just dominated them in every single facet. Offensive line, defensive line, you shut down their pass game. You were able to pass the ball. You were able to run the ball. And it just looked like a complete performance to the point where even special teams is getting just me not talking about them, which is probably the best thing that could happen.
That's so true. And, you know, I think the main thing, though, was Jalen Hurts continues to look better and better every single week. He now has back-to-back 300-yard passing performances. Was amazing against Washington. I thought he was equally as good against the Rams. So definitely stock up to Jalen Hurts. Over a 65% completion percentage in each of these games. And he was mostly money where it counted. On third down, the Eagles were 13 of 18. And he converted 4 of those third downs, including a passing touchdown with his arm, and 6 of those conversions were with his legs. So I thought his ball placement was equally as good as it was against Washington, but this time you finally saw him running more. Do I want him to take less contact? Of course, but to see him unleash that showed one of the missing elements of this offense, and yet it still wasn't even the most impressive part. I still think it was his pocket passing, which shows how far this guy has come. But to see that complete package on Sunday, that felt the most like last year's MVP caliber Hurts, where he was just hitting you in any way he wanted with his legs, arms, everything.
Even with that interception that I don't think should be counted for much because he was trying to go and score a touchdown. It was just a miscommunication. If Jalen Hurts plays like that, you can expect to be in every single game that you play from now until infinity.
You should expect to win every single game if he's playing.
Absolutely. Like that. Right. And he only threw 1 touchdown, but he ran for a touchdown.
Yep.
But where it mattered in big moments, able to take 32 seconds and turn that into 7 points right before half, that's stuff that you talk about with the great quarterbacks, the ones where Tom goes on the field and Peyton and Aaron, and it's like, Oh, too much time. How much time is too much time? Any time is too much time, right? Look at Patrick Mahomes with 13 seconds against the Buffalo Bills a
Right.
couple years ago. And that's what it felt like with Jalen when he hits that trigger, when he goes Steph Curry mode, when he goes Dame time, whatever it is, when that switch goes on, nobody can mess with this guy, man. And he was just on another planet. And Ruben Frank, I believe, tweeted it out that the Eagles right now are second behind the Kansas City Chiefs in conversions of 3rd and 5 or longer on 3rd down.
Yeah.
And a lot of that has to do, one, with the arm, but look at what he did with his legs on that 3rd and 7 where his bones should have shattered by the way
a
he landed on his
terrifying
ankle.
play, like everybody else probably tears their ACL in that. That's the one thing I'd like him to avoid. But I will say, though, even the runs he unleashed more on Sunday, it was more still based on necessity than preference. Most of his scrambles came on 3rd downs or when plays broke down. He wasn't leaving pockets as early. He was still standing in there and wanting to throw the football first and run second.
Necessity. That's when he has to continue to run. And it's not that 2020, 2021 version of Jalen where he's just doing it to get by because he's an athlete who happens to play the quarterback position. No, he's a quarterback who happens to be a very good athlete. And look at some of the throws that he made. Fran Duffy did a great job breaking it all down on some of the top plays on the Philadelphia Eagles YouTube page and breaking down that throw to Dallas Goedert on the touchdown where he throws that ball before Dallas even hits the top of his break at the top of his stem, and he puts that ball behind Dallas so the defender cannot make a play on it.
Right.
Then the best play of the day, Lou, the best throw of the day might have came when he put that ball on a dime to A.J. Brown. I had tweeted this out if you want to see the clip, and I slowed it down from the all-22 angle. That might have been the best pass I've seen from him all season.
Just like the week before, Gino, there's 2 weeks in a row now, there was a deep attempt to Brown, which was, I think, the best throw maybe of the day that wasn't caught.
It was the best throw of the day that wasn't caught. And it might have been the best throw of the day in general. I don't know. That throw to Dallas Goedert
down the left sideline.
Really smart.
Beautiful.
Because Fran Duffy also broke this play down, but the Rams were playing quarters, and Devontae Smith is running a post. So in quarters, the outside cornerback who is defending Devontae is responsible for anything up and out to the sideline. Devontae runs an inside post, so he loses that assignment. And Jalen recognized that immediately and knew that Dallas Goedert is running this pseudo type of wheel route, and that vicinity is going to be wide open. And he put that thing right in a sprinter stride, right in his hands, like he did to A.J. Brown a couple times this game and last week. And it's just getting better and better, Lou. And I honestly feel like a proud dad sometimes watching him throw, right? Like it feels weird, but like see how far you've come. Like,
yeah, I mean, 2021,
exactly.
That's not clicking that fast, right? I
mean,
mean,
it's not.
It's not even coming close.
He's not even thinking of making that throw.
No, exactly. The anticipation is just on another level right now, and so is the ball placement, the mobility. You can tell, too, Gino, I think each week he's been getting better and better. He's clearly getting more and more comfortable in this offense with Brian Johnson. I feel like there's less hesitation as each game goes on because although he was still making some big plays the first few weeks, you did feel like he was still getting his legs underneath him in this offense. And now I feel like it's becoming, muscle memory again.
And I think Brian Johnson and him are finally figuring it out everywhere besides the red zone. But I think they really got into a rhythm. There were some great play designs. There were some greatly executed plays just from everybody on the football field. The running game continues to help out that pass game when you can rely on DeAndre Swift to make them and have to respect the run and bring guys down into the box, which helps open up that pass game for Jalen and everybody involved. And when you have to really make sure that DeAndre and him don't escape the pocket, because if DeAndre gets out there, I mean, he's been lethal in space getting the ball in the air, right? And this offense is just becoming so multifaceted, multidimensional, with an element of speed, with an element of just slam it right in your face with Dallas Goedert just breaking his pads on.
I don't know how you guard
chest. I don't know.
I tweeted out, like, how do you stop this Eagles offense? And somebody simply said you have to outscore them. And that's starting to feel like what it is, because even when they're playing at 70% of their capabilities, the other team, I said this the other day, it still feels like they have to play at 110%, even, Gino, when they're not scoring in the red zone. Like, as you mentioned, they're still not even hitting their ceiling because they're not finishing a lot of these drives into touchdowns.
and the turnovers that they had gotten those first 4 weeks,
Yeah.
the bounces have gone against them, and they're still finding ways to win games. And Chris Long made a great point on his show where he said, if you're in that room with Sean McVay and Matt Stafford, and you're breaking down this game Monday through Saturday, and you said, and you could see what happens, that the Eagles only scored 23 points, 100 times out of 100, you think you win that game.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Sure.
And they didn't, because the Eagles took away things that the Rams thought they could just continue to get away with. And in the second half, when your pass game, which was the most dominant unit of any unit in that first half, turns to nothing, well, the Eagles just did a better job, one, creating a team with this amount of depth and skill on the team, and just the willpower to continue to overcome every bit of adversity. Even when all the momentum is in the favor of the Rams right before half, Jalen Hurts says, no, guys. We're going to go get points. And this game, this is our game. This is our house. If you listen to that stadium, that was a home game from those Eagles fans.
I agree. And it wasn't just Jalen Hurts that shined on Sunday. There were a lot of players that stepped up on both sides of the ball. Stock up coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast.
The Eagles are on a bit of a road stretch if you want to go see them in New York, actually New Jersey this week, or if you want to go down to Lincoln Financial Field. There's only one place that I recommend you get your tickets. It is at Game Time. Game Time, they are better than all the ones that you have used in the past. They're more reliable, easier, and fairly priced. I'm telling you, I used them to go to the Oregon game when they played Colorado a couple weeks ago. Colorado tickets are not cheap, and I got the best deal over at Game Time. What did I do? I took my phone, I downloaded the Game Time app, took about 3 seconds here, and then I created an account, and I used the code LOCKEDONNFL, and I got $20 off my first purchase, and you could do the exact same thing today. All you have to do, download the Game Time app, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first order. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
This is the Locked On Eagles podcast. We thank you so much for making us your first listen each and every day. It's time for Stock Up after a 23-14 win over the Rams on Sunday. The Eagles 5-0 for the second year straight. Of course, as we mentioned in all of segment one, Stock Up to Jalen Hurts continues to get better and better. He looked like the 2022 MVP candidate, just like he did the week before against Washington. But Gino, his weapons looked equally as good. And I FaceTimed you after that final drive in the first half because I was so juiced up for how quickly they moved down the field, because you're seeing the secondary get cooked by Matt Stafford, by Puka Nacua, by Cooper Kupp, by Tutu Atwell, and you're thinking, this might be a problem this year. Like, can they overcome this secondary despite everything else that's going well for them? And then I kind of snapped out of it because Jalen, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, they drive down that quick, and I'm like, man, of course, like, you don't want to ignore the red zone offense issues, the secondary problems, but when you're that good at just moving the ball whenever you want, it feels like you can beat anybody regardless of every other circumstance. It's why I feel like the Patriots felt like, and they always did win, when you had Tom Brady and a Rob Gronkowski, or when you have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. Of course, the roster has to be good too, but that just, it elevates so much. And so Dallas Goedert and A.J. Brown, stock up to those two. They were on another level Sunday.
When has there been like that type of wide receiver, tight end, where both of those guys are equally as good playmakers as each other?
I don't think. I mean, I'm not on this level, because Alshon and Ertz were very good, but not on this level. I don't know if the Eagles have ever had that kind of combo, like a Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce 1-2 punch.
Right, and it's a little bit different, right? I mean, Tyreek and AJ are completely different players, but that element of, I have two elite guys that I could put out there, and they basically are going to win their one-on-one matchups regardless. And these guys are averaging crazy numbers in the air. A.J. Brown, thanks to Reuben Frank, has the most yards through 22 of his first games as an Eagle over everybody, Lou. This guy is on fire. A.J. Brown is a stud. You said he was on pace the other day for 1,800 yards.
Over 1,800 yards, Gino. Yeah, he has, I mean, right now, the last 3 games, he has more yards in a 3-game stretch than any Eagle in 71 years.
Wow.
So I just say all time because those guys are playing against plumbers. So
yeah, you're a big time anti-old sports.
Very much
that's
so.
For sure.
Pre-1970, I'd say I start to lose interest.
But how great does it feel, man, that like this guy can go off at any given time? And when you needed it, the biggest play, how many guys make that one-handed catch over the middle right before halftime?
But honestly, as crazy as it is, Gino, I have confidence that two other weapons on this offense can do it. That's how good they are.
It's surreal. It's a fever dream to an extent. And how did Tennessee ever trade this guy? How can you support that? How can you support that franchise that traded that guy? This is a call to all Titans fans. You have to reevaluate what you are doing with your fandom to give up. At the time, Lou, 24 years old, this guy had multiple 1,000-yard seasons. Now he's on pace just a few years later for 2,000 yards almost. You're out of your mind giving up this guy when the Eagles already had Devontae Smith. You made your bed, now lie in it, and that's what the rest of the NFL is going to have to do. If these two continue to go off, and we still have Devontae in our back pocket. And DeAndre's putting together the best passing game as a running back that we have seen since Miles Sanders' rookie year. This is what we've wanted, Lou. Like that fast pace, here we go. We're going to throw that ball down the field offense. This is it. It's so far removed from 2018. And how crazy is it that Dallas Goedert was in that 2018 offense, which we're saying is like elephants on parade, but those elephants are walking backwards and they're walking up a flight of stairs. They were so slow and we're so far removed from that.
I agree. And that's the thing with A.J. Brown. The Titans, because some receivers, I guess you could say, well, we don't want to pay him because of an injury history. He's one-dimensional. With A.J. Brown, it's like the most complete skill set you could have for a receiver. Against single coverage this year, Gino, he's number 1 in PFF grades, number 1 in receptions, number 1 in yards. Because how do you defend this guy when he's that tall, that physical, that good of a route runner, that fast down the field, those good of hands, the one-handed catch over the middle, that kind of concentration is ridiculous. I mean, he's been on a tear, the most yards through the last 3 games of any receiver, 430 to be exact, as you mentioned, on pace for over 1,800 yards. So stock up to A.J. Brown. But Dallas Goedert, too, 8 catches for over 100 yards. Gino, that's a type of player that, again, Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown can certainly carry an offense, but Goddard's a different type of receiver that can make plays that only really he can. And having that element, again, you can that and Hurts' mobility, you felt the offense take another step. Even though they were scoring 30-plus in multiple games this year, you just felt it be even more unstoppable on Sunday because of those elements.
When you have all of these clubs in your bag, pitches in your arsenal, whatever metaphor that I've used over the last month and a half to describe these guys, it's so tough to defend because when you take away one element, then all of a sudden the next guy is going to show up. And then it's like, they game plan to take away Devontae Smith and everything deep. Well, the two guys that are really good in those intermediate areas that if they get the ball in space are also very good at yards after the catch. Well, that's tough to defend. And if you want to take that away, well, see example 1, and Devontae Smith has that week like he had a couple weeks ago.
This offense in general stock up because, Gino, the entire offensive line, you could say, dominated. I mean, Jason Kelce was a man possessed on Sunday. Landon Dickerson had the highest PFF grade of any Eagle. No pressures on over 40 pass blocking snaps. Lane Johnson still has not allowed a sack since 2020. And how about Sua Opeta going up against potentially the best interior pass rusher of all time, allows 0 sacks, 0 quarterback hits, and just 3 pressures? I mean, what a performance. Jeff Stoutland, shout out to him. That entire offense was just on another level Sunday. And again, to eliminate Aaron Donald like that when Jalen Carter's blowing up double teams on the other side, it just shows how good this unit is. I saw it was like on the Dan Le Batard show today, and I think this was a great point. The Eagles' offensive line might be the best unit in the entire NFL, like over the Bengals receiving core, over anything. They're the best unit in the league.
Might?
Yeah,
they are. They are. And that's with a backup right guard. And that's with
the ridiculous part. I mean,
it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense, especially because you've seen the volatility and the variability between starters and backups in the National Football League, i.e. the game that you just played where Rob Havenstein comes off the field and then they put a backup in there and Haason Reddick sends this man to the shadow realm the following rep. Sua Opeta, the very first snap, they're like, no, we're going to double this guy and go after 99. We're going to go right after Aaron Donald. We're not shying away from anybody. And that's the thing about football is that when you can do that type of mentality, Lou, where it doesn't matter who you are, you could be Superman. You could be a generational player. But I think I misspoke the other day and said Aaron Donald got a sack in that game. Jeff Stoutland has never allowed Aaron Donald to get a sack in the entirety of his time coaching for the Eagles against the Rams. That's crazy to say out loud.
Unfortunately for the Rams, they could not say the same about Jalen Carter. Gino, Jalen had 2 sacks on Sunday. Haason Reddick also 2 sacks. Those two, I mean, they stole them from the NFL. Last offseason, Haason Reddick had no business signing that kind of contract. Jalen Carter this year had no business falling to 9th overall. I mean, those plays, and Reddick just continues to, it really was the cast. It must have been the cast because he has 3 sacks now in 2 games without it, and all 3 of them came in such a massive spot to get a 3rd and long sack and then a 4th and long sack last game at the end of the 3rd quarter or the 4th quarter in a tough spot where they're still only up by 1 score. I mean, he's the most clutch edge rusher in the NFL, and the floodgates are opening just like they did last year. All he needs is that 1 sack, and the momentum rolls.
You said they stole him. They're gonna have to pay him after this.
I was gonna say they're gonna pony up now because he is vastly underpaid.
He's not gonna make it till the end of his contract.
But lucky, nobody else in this defensive line is making money. I mean, Jalen Carter already is maybe the best defensive tackle in football, and he's on a rookie contract. He's only 5 games into his career.
You have him cost controlled until 2028.
He's the steal of the decade. I can't believe how good he was. I mean, I can believe it now, but oh my gosh.
There were 2 plays where Haason got a sack and Jalen Carter may have made the better play, and Jalen got a sack that has Haason on Jalen's first sack. Fran Duffy broke this down, and it was unbelievable to see from the end zone view. Haason Reddick goes speed to power, gets underneath Havenstein's chest, and walks Havenstein behind Matt Stafford. Like literally took him from the right side of the field to the left side of the field, and Jalen Carter was able to clean it up. And on Haason Reddick's final play, Jalen Carter went in there and took a double team and made it look like these guys weren't 650 pounds combined and playing in the National Football League. He makes it look easy, and he's 5 games into his career, and he makes plays when they need him to. His first sack was under a minute left in that game against New England. He comes up big in the 4th quarter. That's what Haason Reddick does. They got guys with the clutch gene, and that's what I love more than anything, especially after going back to 2018 and seeing them let situations slip.
And you hate the 2018 Eagles.
I hate it.
You got to relax with the 2018 Eagles. They almost went to the NFC Championship game.
Carolina, I don't care about
but
almost. It's not horseshoes and hand
like go after the
grenades,
2020 Eagles, though.
They didn't do things like this, though. Like they.
No,
they
I get it. I know they've come a long way for sure. Jalen Carter. Listen to this stat. Since Next Gen Stats has been tracking pressure data, there's only 2 defensive tackles that have ever in their first 5 games recorded 25 plus pressures, 3.5 plus sacks, and 2 plus forced fumbles. Jalen Carter and Aaron Donald. And Jalen Carter looked way better than Aaron Donald on Sunday.
Without a doubt. Yep. That's not hyperbolic, folks. Go watch all of the plays from Aaron. Go watch all of the plays from Jalen. I know there's quite a difference in offensive line play, but it doesn't matter when you're playing with the top pick in this league.
Gino, wasn't a perfect game, though. They definitely have some things to work on both sides of the ball. We're going to get into that stock down coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles. Today's show is sponsored by FanDuel. Snap into the action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. If you rode with me in LOE3, I got you some money with Dallas Goedert, finally. That's $200 back in bonus bets, though, win or lose, regardless of our bets at FanDuel. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action than right now. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. You name it. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL and the Locked On Podcast Network. This is the Locked On Eagles podcast. We're wrapping up a Tuesday edition of the show. Stock up, stock down after a 23-14 win over the Rams. You know, as we mentioned, stock up to Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, the offensive line, Haason Reddick, Jalen Carter. There's so many guys. I mean, we didn't even mention Sean Desai, whose defense was getting cooked in the first half. And then what an adjustment in the second half to hold the Rams to only 14 total points. I mean, he outcoached McVay on Sunday.
I agree. And I got to give a hats off to somebody who I've not ever said anything positive about on this show, Mike Clay. The Eagles are currently 4th in the NFL in punt return average at 16.9 yards. They're actually setting themselves up with really good field position. I got to say,
every time I watch the special teams unit, I just feel like that Shaq meme where it's, I'm so sorry, I was not aware of your game. Like that's how
Britton Covey.
That's
man.
how
He's
I feel. Britton Covey's killing it right now. Yeah, stock up to Britton Covey in the special teams unit. Jake Elliott, I mean, continuing to hit field goals. The issue is, though, Gino, Jake Elliott has to be on the field more than he should, and that's stocked down to the red zone offense. They have to continue to settle for 3, and that's the only reason. Again, we mentioned that game on Sunday felt like the most dominant 2022 type of performance from this team as a whole, and yet they only won by 9. Why? Because this offense, they can do anything until they get in between. It's like that 20 to 10 yard line mark. When they're in that area, they just melt. And I don't know why. They've attempted more field goals than any team in the league this year. That should not be the way it is when you're an offense, as you mentioned, has the speed, has the power, can run, can pass. They have a mobile quarterback. I mean, why they're not scoring touchdowns when they get down there? They can get the tush push when it's a 1 to 3 yard run. But when, again, they're in that 20 to 10 yard area, they melt. They got to figure something out with that because you have to convert when you play better teams.
And this isn't something of just being upset to be upset.
No.
The Eagles are 2nd in the league in total yards per game.
Right.
2nd in rush yards per game. 10th in pass yards per game. They're 3rd in first downs per game. What are they in third down? 2nd and third down.
Yeah.
10th and fourth down. 2nd in time of possession. 23rd in goal to go situations and 27th in red zone offense. Like, sorry that took me a little bit to get there, but their offense is so good, and that's such an outlier. Like, that doesn't make sense. If you were to take the statistics and go back to your statistics course from 101 back in college, like, that's an outlier. You cut that off completely and say, how do we get this thing back to the median, back to the average? You have to at least get to average, Lou, because when you're scoring 28.2 points per game, which is 5th in the league.
Yeah.
You want to get to first. You need to get to first. Look at the Super Bowl last year. As many points as you scored, it wasn't enough points.
Right. Gino, last year they were 2nd in touchdowns and 31st in field goal attempts. This year they're 13th in touchdowns. They're 1st in field goal attempts. That has to change. They were averaging 10 plays a drive on Sunday. And to only put up 23 it really is inexcusable, and a lot of it's on Brian Johnson. Again, he even mentioned it in his press conference today. Football's different when you get down there. Well, he recognized it, and if he doesn't know how to get it done, I mean, you've mentioned it a few times the past couple of weeks, you might have to find another voice to get in there for play calling when it gets down to the 20-yard line and up.
That was one of the things that I think we applauded Nick Sirianni for. I think we applauded a young Doug Peterson for, was that when things weren't going right, they tried different things.
Great point, yeah.
Look at Doug with Andy Reid. The reason that Doug became Doug was Andy handed him that 2-minute offense.
Because Andy sucked with time management. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. There you go, Lou. There's always a correlation. There's always a root cause. And there's always somebody that might be able to do something better than you. And Brian Johnson, really, really good from their own end zone up to about the 22-yard line. And from there in, I don't understand. I think it's more condensed. There's less things the defense can do. I don't know exactly what it is. Or maybe it's like the catcher that can't throw back to the pitcher. Like, it's just a tick in his head. Like, he just can't call the right play. It's like a robot that's just like, I got to call 3 run plays. Got to call 3 run plays. Got to call 3 run plays. It's like, no, you don't.
Never makes sense. That. I mean, there's just way too much Kenneth Gainwell when you get down there. Too many QB like direct runs. I don't know. When he gets down there, he loses his rhythm that he builds up when I think he's been getting going in the other areas of the field over the last month. So, stock down definitely to the red zone offense. They have to be better. There's no excuses when you have that kind of personnel that any type of play you need to make down there, when it gets tighter, they should be able to make. So one player, though, that's not making plays, stock down to, I mean, I've had to jump ship now the last few weeks. It's Quez Watkins. That 3rd and 2 where he misses 2 easy blocks to pick up a first down. The fact that he's waving his hands, I know he was wide open in the end zone and Hurts missed him on the one play. He's got no right to be calling for the ball right now. And Gino, they're kind of giving me the press conferences today and yesterday, very J.J. Arcega-Whiteside energy where they kept saying he was a great blocker. They just keep pointing to Quez Watkins' speed. And I get that, but eventually you have to touch the football to show that speed impacts the game, or else, like, Why not just put Devin Allen out there? He's fast. Marquise Goodwin is fast too. Just speed is not everything. You can be fast and still be terrible in the NFL. So them saying that's the reason he's out there is not a good enough reason. And I was a huge Quez guy. Everybody that listens to this show knows that.
Well, one, thank you, and welcome to Quez Anonymous. It's great of you to admit.
I don't want to be here, but
you got to. It's the first step of admitting when something isn't going right.
My name's Louie, and I'm a Quezaholic.
Yeah, but I can't believe that Brian Johnson today, when asked about Quez Watkins' intangibles, he was asked about his intangibles in the press conference, and he says, well, he's a really fast player. I'm so glad you brought up Devin Allen. Because Devin Allen is an Olympic sprinter who might be one of the fastest people on the face of the planet. For him to say that is just downright insanity.
And maybe, though, Gino, like Deshaun Jackson, I get it. Sometimes he would only touch the football once, but you would still see his impact. Safeties were backing up for their lives. It was opening things up. Quez Watkins, I got news for the NFL, is not, for these coaches, he's not opening up anything for Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. And the tape will absolutely show that. So to me, like, I think Quez's skill set is better than Olamide Zaccheaus. He's a more talented player, but production eventually has to come like OZ had the last 2 games, or else you can't be on the field anymore. And Quez is just not good enough. Even when you don't really like need that third receiver, it would be nice to have a guy make more plays, and OZ made them, and Quez hasn't in a long time. So they've got to get something done there, whether it's give Zaccheaus more opportunities or go trade for somebody. I mean, you were texting me about Mecole Hardman today. Van Jefferson apparently is on the trade block.
He just got traded to Atlanta.
Who did?
Like 2 minutes after you sent that, he got traded, Van Jefferson.
Oh, Van Jefferson got, see, there we go. But
Atlanta,
they're going to have to do something, even though it's not going to be Van.
I'm over it. I can't stand watching somebody who the effort questions were there for me when I was watching his tape last year, just not finishing his routes. And then I see Olamide Zaccheaus make maybe the best hustle play I've seen out of a wide receiver last week, and saw his explosiveness. And then for them to hand the reins back to this kid, it drives me insane that you can do something as crazy as that, where you continue to try and stick a round peg in a square hole. And the whole time, this whole offseason, Lou, what is the one word I harped on for these guys that are only going to get 2 to 3 touches a game? What was the one word that they had to be with their touches? Do you remember this word?
I mean, efficient's popping in my head.
Yes, you have to be efficient. When Olamide Zaccheaus has 2 touches last week, one of which is a touchdown, and then Quez Watkins does.
Yeah, you're not asked to do much.
No, you're not. You just have to do it well.
Yeah, it's like the 8th man off the bench in the NBA that's a good shooter. Like, we just need you to hit 1 or 2 corner threes. That's Quez. Like, we just need you to hit 1 or 2 of these a game. We're not asking for much. And
not even a corner 3, dude. Lay it up and we'll give you a trampoline to jump into the hoop.
Yeah, it's got to be OZ, I think, moving forward. We'll see what happens. But the snap count, it was like, what, 50-9? I mean, it was all Quez. He instantly came back as the guy. And OZ had 2 really good games in a row. So I don't know what their logic was. I mean, they explained it. I don't agree with it, though. We were going to say stock down to the corners at some point, but then they recovered very nicely in the second half. Like, of course, it's not fair to Eli Ricks and, Mario Goodrich to be going up one-on-one against Cooper Kupp, who might be the best inside route runner in the NFL. But then Darius Slay and James Bradbury weren't doing well either, but they recovered really nicely in that second half. Bradley Roby played excellent, allowed -4 passing yards, actually, in that half. And Slay and Bradbury, they shut things down in the second half. I think Stafford was 2 of 7 with a 39.6 rating when targeting those two. So excellent adjustment by the corners too. I'm not going to say stock down, but I just wanted to mention them too because they were battling. It looked really bad for a bit and they recovered.
How about stock down to first halves in general? It just seems like this team plays better in the second half every single week.
Sure.
Like they just dial it in after halftime. They make the adjustments that they need to. And after last game, some people say that halftime adjustments are just like faux pas and they're not a real thing.
Well, if you're Jonathan Gannon, sure, yeah.
For sure. Yeah, we lived that reality for a little bit. But Sean Desai, I mean, in 15 minutes, he changed his entire game plan that he worked 72 hours and then some on.
Yeah, he blitzed a lot more. They played more. I think there were times too where they were trying to put Bradbury in and out and moving a lot of missing parts.
I think
Cooper
Kupp.
They double team Cooper Kupp. Yeah, I think they settled down, and I think the adjustments were absolutely there. And as we mentioned before, Desai out Coach McVay. So that was a really impressive win overall for the Eagles. 5-0. Got the New York Jets coming up this week on Sunday. We'll continue to move forward with that matchup tomorrow. We've still got 3 more shows for you right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. Shout out to our everydayers for making us your first listen each and every day. Also, guys, to let you know, since football season is here, Locked On's kicking up our coverage with Locked On NFL Kickoff Live. Each Friday, Locked On's going live at 2 p.m. on Eastern Time. Every Locked On NFL YouTube channel is going to have it. Host Tanisha Batiste, Jarvis Davis, and Kyle Krabs. They'll break down every game on the NFL slate to get you ready for your team's matchup, your fantasy lineups, your betting angles, all that and more. Find Locked On NFL Kickoff every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on every Locked On NFL YouTube channel. For Gino Camilleri, I'm Lou DiBiase signing off for today. As always, thank you so much for downloading, watching, and listening, and let's go Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.